Jen, it's all yours.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next to last Instruction Committee panel on the topic of online quality. My name is Jen Kelly, and I am a member of the college's Instruction Committee. For those of you who don't know, the Instruction Committee is an elected group of faculty that pursue all things related to instruction and pedagogy at COD. We are charged with directing and maintaining the academic integrity of the curriculum and learning experience and provide recommendations to college leadership. Our motivation for scheduling these panels has been to allow for faculty in the divisions to have conversation about what constitutes good quality instructional delivery in an online setting. While many groups across campus have given consideration to this topic, we think this is the first campus-wide opportunity to discuss this in a large group setting. I'd like to welcome and thank each of our panelists for volunteering to talk with us today. As with all of our faculty panels that the committee has facilitated, each of our guests will be given 10 minutes for their presentation, and then we'll wrap everything up with Q&A conversation afterwards. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things off to our panelists.
Actually, we didn't decide the order. Does anyone want to volunteer to go first?
You guys have
Guess I'll jump on in there since my colleagues are jumping in.
I can go first, Peter. I don't mind.
Sweet.
Okay.
Ladies first, absolutely, Mary. Yes, please.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully I do this right. I'm more of a collaborate person. So can you see my slides?
You're all set.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, I would like to thank you for inviting me. I feel like, wow, I must have something special to share with everybody, but it's something that I enjoyed doing as far as looking at my online courses. I recently presented at ILCO a presentation, and one of the things that came out of it was that I was doing something that was called regular and substantive interaction. This is where you have the connections between teacher and learner and learner interactions. What I try to do is create assignments such that kind of has these bases behind. When I create the course or the assignments, I try to create online course tenets that have personal meaning to the students, that try to create assignments that pushes them out of their comfort zone. I know this has become very popular, is the being comfortable with being uncomfortable motto, but knowing that as an instructor that I'm there to help, that I'm there to support. Especially with the technology that we are able to use in online. The second thing that I try to do is create student-to-student learning. And this is really important, especially given the situation that we're not in the classroom. And that's something that I always strive for it in the classroom, is to kind of create those connections, because those students are looking for that, in being able to create assignments where they can work together, but not necessarily, it's still on their own accord as far as their grade. One of the things that I have found is that we learn more from others that fail than if they succeed. So we want to try to engage students such that they're interacting with students that are a little bit ahead of them and a little bit behind them. And they kind of refer to this as compound learning. And so that they are able to give feedback as well as create a community. And then the third thing is that I try to create assignments such that it spurs action, that they're able to take the assignment. And part of the projects that I do is like service learning, simulations, and things that I'll talk about in just a sec, that allows them to learn by doing. And gives them that confidence to go out and say, hey, I know how to do this, or at least I can start, I have a good starting point. So the tools that I use are perusal, and I know we've talked about this before, but I can't say enough. I actually did a screenshot here of perusal, and one of the things that you'll see here is the connections that the students have with the content, and that kind of goes into the personal meaning. Like, what is it that what does that statement say to them? How does it apply to their experience? Now, this is a retail class, so they all have gone shopping in their lifetime. So there's a lot of personal meaning there. I tried to go in and like kind of push them in certain directions, like apply it to concepts that are going on now, whether it be COVID or changes in retail or changes in marketing, something that could get them to start thinking. And sometimes I'll highlight it and I'll put like an article and say, hey, how do you apply it to this? There is question about whether, should you be involved or you should just let the students have these conversations. And you can see here that they have one student here and another student responding, and then another student upvoted what this person said. And so you have that student to student engaged. The other thing that I love about perusal, especially with the book, is that you see where the gaps are. So when I'm done and I'm going, wow, the students, all 30 of them missed this part. So I can go back and follow up with that content and say, hey guys, I know that no one's, annotated here, but there's some really good information that I think you need to know. That there is a challenge with this is that I think it would be very applicable when you talk about the content after they've annotated in a classroom environment, or at least have the VCM class a little bit longer. I don't have enough time to really go through a whole chapter in 50-minute class. So that's something that that I have worked on for fall semester, but I'm looking forward to when I'm actually in a classroom and we can actually have a conversation and pull up all the different annotations and what they meant by it and kind of further that conversation. The second thing that I have is CGScholar. This is something when I'm in my master's in education. It's with Dr. Cope, and it's something that he created. It's kind of like a social media for academic scholar information. So we're not posting things like, hey, we're at Starbucks and we got this awesome drink. But you can see here that I had them create a topic, and then they find that personal meaning where, hey, what is a brand strategy? What brand do you find that you're interested in, and how do they create that brand strategy? I encourage them to put pictures up, videos up, write a summary. They're able to comment. They're able to tag someone, and so that they can respond back and forth. I do provide examples, and this, again, it goes from student to student learning in that, some students might not be sure what they want, like what do I need to do? So they can see what others have posted and then continue on with their example and what they feel is applicable for that topic. And then the other thing is simulations. I can't speak enough of this. I use these in most of my classes. This really kind of gives that student that spurs action connection, especially when it comes to social media and digital marketing, because it is really hard to teach that stuff out of a book. It's kind of like, I guess, if you were to teach someone how to fly a plane and then you only learn by a book. This allows the student to really kind of take the basics and then kind of bridge it to where they can launch their business or working with an organization. What I try to do is create groups with the simulations, and I use Microsoft Teams. This has been a game changer for me because it's been such a difficult process to get students to work in groups. And with Microsoft Teams, that solves everything. And so I do create simulation groups, although the students are working, their scores are independent, but I put them in groups so that they don't feel that they're in this cave. Where they're like, well, what do I do? How do I, and obviously I'm still there to support them, but I want them to also help each other out. And this helps, especially with online, because you do feel kind of isolated. And given that if we were in a classroom, you would have much more interaction and being able to help each other, like, oh, hey, I did this and this worked, kind of thing. So I can't say enough for Teams. And then I just want to just close it off with, to definitely, like, with learning technologies, they have been like my savior, putting this all together, and that to definitely reach out to them, because you don't want to be that person who shows up and decides that, hey, I'm a cat. I'm not a cat. And so I love this video in terms of being able to have that support to help out with the technology. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Peter, do you want to go next?
I think I will go next. Thank you so much. Mary has set the bar very high. I don't have a PowerPoint, Mary, of course. That was actually looked really, really good for sure. And first of all, let me say this. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I think everyone who is on the call, you all are professors, you all are instructors, probably galore. I learned so much more from you all. I'm faking it. Actually, I'm still faking it. And I've been here for a little while. I feel like I'm still faking it. Why? Because I really love this entrepreneurship thing a whole lot that I bring to my classes. And I really do my best to keep one foot in the workforce and the corporate environment and one foot in academia in order to bring those experiences, bring those learnings back to the classroom, back to the students, so that they can be better prepared for the workforce, better prepared to start their own business if that's what they choose to do, but ultimately better, at least more aware in order to do so. I'm also going to start out with where Mary finished off with learning technologies, and I see Lara here on the call for sure. I have used historically their services on many different levels, from Blackboard, my Blackboard ignorance, all the way to recording videos. And some of the things I'm going to speak about today are probably commonplace, but I really try my best to think about customer. And my customer is our students. And I need to be able to meet my customer where they are. And all of us know our students today and their likes and their dislikes and what they do. And they spend more time on their phone, playing games, on social media, whatever the case may be. Nevertheless, these are our consumers of the future. And so now how can you meet them where they are today? One of the things that I've done, and of course I partner with, and I'll try to share a little bit, and my screen is not nearly as efficient as Mary's, but one of the things that I really try to do on a regular basis is do a lot of video. And I do, as you see here, you're looking at my Blackboard screen, which I do a lot of announcements. This is my announcements for one of my online classes, but especially in my online classes, I do a lot of announcements, number one, but I also do a lot of video intentionally. Why? Because let's just face it, that we are in a video Instagram generation that we are talking to, and they would rather watch something than read something. Listen, I'm not even going to pick on our students. Adults would rather watch something than read something these days. So I'm ensuring always that I'm having some type of video component in all of my classes. So in this case, of course, I'm giving them tips on how to be successful in the class. And I think I have a couple of videos, as you can see here. I'm not going to play them for you because it's irritating seeing myself on video. So but I want to make sure that I'm always providing as much detail as possible. And if I can give them 2 to 5 minute snippets of what they need to be able to be successful, what they can take away from the course that they can apply in their lives right now, especially from an entrepreneurship perspective, what can they apply right now, even at their age or where they are, in order to apply for their future selves when they want to start a business also. Here's another example of a video here. And again, thanks to Lara and those folks over there at Learning Technologies that have given me a great background to make me feel like I was in a corporate environment as well. Again, not playing this for you, but again, just little stuff to reach my customer where they are. Okay, cool. That's videos. The other thing that I do is I share, and this is really silly stuff here, but I'm a Google Drive fanatic. I live and die by Google Drive. If Google ever decided to go out of business, I would be done for. Literally all of my syllabi from as far back as I can remember are stored on the cloud. Why? So if I come to your house, I could still do some good work there for sure. So I also share with my students their syllabi via Google as well. download a PDF, send them out, all that kind of good stuff, and refer back to the syllabus on a regular basis so that they can see all the time what's coming up and due, because students don't read the syllabus, right? And because students don't read the syllabus, I will read it for them for sure. So I'm also doing that on a regular basis. The other thing that I'm doing online more and more, and I know the school is pushing towards this, and Jen probably can attest to this as well. I'm straying away more and more from textbooks. So yes, we're in the business department here, Mary and I, and textbooks have been almost the backbone for a lot of business courses for as far back as we can remember. I remember my educational experience was textbook, huge textbooks for every single class. And now with the online resources, more and more, I'm starting to see more value outside of textbooks. This is just a migration and evolving of an industry. The textbook industry is slowly, I don't know if dying is a good word, but it's evolving at the very least for sure. So I'm reaching out more to OER, open resources, and also articles. I'll leave that and let that sit out there to a certain extent, articles. Whereas I am encouraging our college students here to read more articles that will be more relevant and more current than even the textbooks are right now. So yes, I'm reaching for online resources, open educational resources, but I'm also encouraging them. As you see here, I have a lot of APA stuff and library stuff and plagiarism stuff on here. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling so fast, but I'm really encouraging them to go to the online library and go to the databases and use Statista, Business Source Complete, Academic Search, and also some of the Gale business and entrepreneurship tools that are available to all of our students for free. And instead of going to google.com, which is so easy for all of us, how are you utilizing all of the resources that are now available to us on a regular basis? And especially in the business department, I think it's very, very important that they reach out to these resources overall as well. I think I'm doing that. Last thing I'm going to say about this, and I'm going to shut up and pass the baton over to Steve, who's probably got a better presentation than I do as well. Zoom etiquette for sure. So just some tips and things that I do for my hybrid courses or my online courses. I'm huge on the chat. So I take attendance in my classes. I tell my students showing up in class is half the battle of your course. Showing up and participating is about 3/4 of the battle. So now I don't just want you to sit there on Zoom and I could just see your name like Mia Boyd. I want to actually see you participate. So I don't actually ask them to come on video. I ask them to participate. So every time they get in my course room, one of the first things that I do when I hit the record button, I ask them all, hey, give me a shout out on chat. Let me know that you're live. Let me know that you're doing well. And that actually counts as part of their participation. At the beginning and at the end, I actually ask them to participate in chat. Now, during the class, of course, I'm also asking them to engage in questions. Yes, I do have videos in my class, whether it's entrepreneurship class, organizational behavior class, or a customer service class. I'm finding videos to break up my own monotony, of course. And then I'm trying to pull out answers, pull out responses from students on a regular basis so that I can hear their learnings throughout the class. So they can also hear their peers' learnings throughout the class. Zoom allows you to be able to do breakout rooms, as many of you are already familiar with. It allows you to be able to take attendance. It allows you to be able to chat with your students on a regular basis. And yes, I do use the chat room in course, in class, to be able to reach out to students, ask them specific questions, and whether they want to respond via chat or come off of mute and actually answer. I believe either way is beneficial in 2021 and beyond. So I think that's enough. That's enough for me there right now. So Steve, don't make me look too bad, man.
No, I think both of you were awesome. I think mine won't be as good as the rest of you. So I'm going to start discussing. We're not. I lost my mic here. Can you guys hear me okay now? I think we're good. Sorry about that. I have all this expensive equipment and nothing works. So I want to first off say that much of what I'm going to talk about is really in the purview of what I do within CIS. So we heard from 2 business faculty. I'm part of CIS, where I primarily teach a lot of the software development courses, primarily mostly sticking in game development. And one of the things that I said when we had to go, fully online is, okay, the game development programs are dead, because we've never done online with game development, and I couldn't even fathom doing it online at all. I've seen other online schools try to do game development, and in my eyes, they were kind of like not the greatest. So it was very difficult for me to try to navigate this, at least at first. And I think a lot of you guys may have been in a similar boat, even if you're not in CIS. One of the ways that I approach this to try to make my courses better, and actually in some cases better online than even face-to-face, was actually through video too. So, like Peter was mentioning, especially in his presentation, saying that video is really, really important. It's the same thing in my courses too. And the reason why it's important, I think, in not only my courses, but actually the majority of actually CIS in general, is we tend to use some software that can be very daunting. So the idea of having video allows students to continue to rewatch things over and over again, pause, rewind, which they couldn't really do in person, like in an in-person class, unless we were recording the in-person class. So I've been utilizing that quite a bit, and I can actually share my screen really quick. Let me go to this window here. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay. So you guys should be able to see my my browser window. I'm actually inside of one of my courses right now. In particular, I'm in a section that I called lectures. There's nothing really that special about my Blackboard Shell. I have very basic things that probably many of you guys have. I have, an announcements area that a lot of you guys may use, and I use that quite a bit too. Syllabus, my instructor area, and then of course I have an area for assignments. I have a links section, which I tend to put, web links that would be helpful for students that are built of material that I didn't create. Some of it is material that I created, but most of it is stuff I didn't create. And then documents, if they need to download any sorts of documents or templates that we created for the class. And then sometimes I have them do development blogs, but that's kind of rare, so I won't really discuss that. That's kind of a separate discussion altogether. But the thing that's special that I did during this pandemic is creating a lecture section. Because I haven't done recorded lectures in the past. And so what I would do is I would separate the lecture sections by week. And for most classes, I'd have some lectures to watch each week. Some classes, there wouldn't be a weekly lecture. There'd be some other material that I would specify elsewhere. And, so for example, if I were to click in week 5, let's say I have a couple lectures here. Sometimes there's 1, sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 5. It just kind of depends on lectures. I kind of just separate them by topic. And then this goes to a web link. So I want to specify one thing too, because I think this is something that many of you guys may have dealt with too. If we're using Blackboard, we do have the ability to upload a file. Right. And I would upload files all the time, including video files. You can upload video files. Those files can get pretty large, especially if we're working with higher resolution. Because we're using software packages, I want to work with high resolution video, because there may be like some very small things that are hard to read if we're not working under high resolution video. The ability to zoom in to certain areas can be helpful with high res video. So my videos would tend to be fairly large. And then every once in a while, there will be a Blackboard purge where we would have content deleted off of our Blackboard shells. And I didn't want to run into that. That was kind of something that I thought ahead on. And so in case there's a purge, I would want to make sure that my video content is stored elsewhere. So actually, I have a couple storage areas. I don't just have one. There's a couple. So let me backtrack to, first off, how do I create the videos? Because we've seen a bunch of different methods before, and I think my method is a method that I've shared with a number of other faculty, but it's probably a little bit different than what many of you guys may have seen before. And I want to preface this by saying there's no right or wrong way. This is just the way that works well for me. So what I do is I use OBS. OBS is a really popular software in the gaming community, and it allows you to stream live video. It also allows you to just create, screen captured recordings. I can do, what's great about this is it's free. I haven't spent a dime on it. And I can do high res video for a unlimited amount of time for my recording. There's a lot of other video recording software or screen capture software out there where it only allows like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. This is really high quality that gives me unlimited amounts of recording time, which is awesome. So I download this. It works for Windows, Mac or Linux, so it's highly accessible. And at that point, once I have that recording, I have that video on my computer. I can put it anywhere I want. I could put it on my Google Drive, as Peter was mentioning, right? I could do that too. And then at that point, I don't upload the video directly to Blackboard. At that point, I like to upload actually to YouTube. Now, one of the dangers with YouTube, of course, is that when you upload to YouTube, people might be worried about, okay, my lectures now are out there, okay? Anybody can look at them, that sort of thing. That's kind of true in some ways, but there's ways to prevent other people from looking at your content. If you decide to use YouTube like I do, I tend to upload my my YouTube content as unlisted video. So you can do like public. I think there's a private option. There's an unlisted video option too. So the unlisted video option just means that the only people that can see your video are people that have the link to your video. So at that point, then I put the link to my video here in Blackboard. So all that's in Blackboard are links to YouTube, and that's it. And then the students can watch that over and over again, and that's been very, very helpful. And I think doing this is something that I'm now thinking about doing for my on-site courses. So when I come back to teach even more classes face-to-face in the fall, I'm thinking about still having video content for lectures like this where we're covering software development, so that we can spend the face-to-face time doing things like studio or lab time, which is really important in our area that we don't typically get enough of. We can do critique, which we typically never had time for in the past, and now we'll have time for critique, which is invaluable for our area. So that's kind of, where I'm like, this has been a learning process for me, and it's been such a great learning process that I think I'm going to utilize a lot of these techniques even for the face-to-face classes. Another thing that we were doing too, and this is a secret weapon of mine, although it's not that secret anymore because I've been telling everybody about it, is Discord. This is Discord, and those who are on the instructional committee, I know you guys have seen this before. You guys launched the first college-wide COD Discord server, which is excellent. I've been using Discord well before the pandemic. And what's been great about Discord is it's essentially a service that is also free, that you as an instructor, or anybody for that matter, can create a server for the course. So I create a server at the beginning of the semester for every single course. I invite the students to participate in that server. And then I might create like sub channels for different things. Like I have like even team projects. So each group might get their own channel, and they can just discuss amongst themselves via chat. It can be video or even voice chat, about anything regarding the course. Typically, students have been using it for questions, like asking general questions. And here's what's awesome about this. Some of you guys might be thinking, well, if I add Discord to my course, it's just going to be more work. And the answer to that is actually no. It's actually been less work for me by adding Discord. And the reason why is because one of the things that I've been seeing like almost none of now is emails from students. I get almost no emails from students anymore at all because of Discord. So the students get onto Discord, they ask their questions. Half the time, another student beats me to the answer anyway. Okay. And and that's it. And of course, I'll answer. I might be able to steer things in different directions via Discord, but it's quick. It's a chat interface. Students are used to it. So this is another like thing that started in gaming, but students, especially if they're in their late teens, 20s especially, they may already have a Discord user account already. So it's a really easy transition for them. They already have the app on their phone. It comes in like a text message if you put the app on your phone. So I have the app on my own phone too. And again, it's actually saved me time, and also answers to those questions that may be asked. It's on the server, so anybody can keep referring back to those Q&A sessions that we would essentially have on Discord. We don't have enough time for me to like dive really deep into what Discord is and that sort of thing, and I realize that this might be a newer thing for many that are on this call. So if you have questions about that sort of thing, just feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to discuss more with you about that. But those are kind of the special things that I'm doing. I think I may have gone a little over on time, but yeah, I think we're done. So
Thank you all so much. We're going to open things up to questions now. We do have a question in the chat from Tom Robertson, which would probably apply to all three of you. So I'll just throw it out there, whoever wants to answer. How do you verify students are actually watching videos? I know many of mine do not based on their lack of prep for lab work. And Lara has an answer, but I'm also curious to see how individually you deal with this in your courses.
I usually put them in like a user video where I have comments within the videos, and then I also put it on the quiz. So, and I always state that, hey, there's questions from this video that's going to be on the quiz, so kind of need to watch it. But I have not had a chance to really look at the analytics behind it. You kind of have to pick and choose.
Yeah, I'll jump into, I very similar to Mary. I assign homework or quiz related questions that will come from video. So one of the things I do is I do a video for them to do their library articles or database research, right? And I actually partnered with Christine Kickles, couldn't even think of her name for a second there. She actually does a bunch of them for me, but I've also even done one as well in order for students. If they say to me, I don't know how to use the database. Well, did you watch the video? No, I didn't. Okay, well, come talk to me after that. And of course, I never hear from them again, but they realize very quickly in my class, I got to pay attention. I got to watch these videos if I want to do well in the class also. And I intentionally try not to make them long because I know everyone's attention span is a little bit short these days.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that too. Actually, I think my method might be somewhat similar to Peter's actually too. I honestly, I treat my videos just like I would treat somebody coming into one of my face-to-face lecture classes. I'm kind of a tough love sort of professor. So like the idea is that if a student doesn't make it to class or just doesn't come to class, too bad. Like that's just how it is. They'll miss content. Therefore, they won't be able to complete their work properly or all my videos and that sort of thing. They're in order to do well, let me backtrack. In order to do well on an assignment, for example, or to even know how to do an assignment, you're going to have to watch the video like that. And it's the same thing face to face. You're going to have to come to my lecture face to face in order to be able to complete the assignment. So they'll know really early on, typically, that they're going to have to watch the video if they want to get any sort of credit in class, because they won't be able to do the assignment without watching the videos. So that's kind of how I treat it. So I really don't keep track of it, to be honest.
I do know that the user videos allow you to ask questions, and you can have like low stakes, like 1 point, 2 point, and it will tie back to your grade book.
What other questions do folks have? I know I have a couple.
Can I throw one out there?
Yeah.
So Steve alluded to this a little bit, but I'm curious to know from you guys, like, what is the hardest sort of aspect or element of your face-to-face courses that you find trying to replicate or reproduce in an online or virtual setting? What's the biggest challenge in taking something from face-to-face and moving it online?
I think it's a class discussion, being able to have that conversation where everyone's listening and being able to contribute. It's a shift, and they're learning. Like, I'm starting to see an uptick in the number of people commenting in the chat. That's one piece of technology that I would love, is be able to kind of get like a list, whatever was said in the chat, where I can download it and then be able to kind of evaluate it from that point, which I'm sure will come.
But Mary, you're
Like
using
a transcript or something.
You're using perusal to facilitate a lot of those conversations, right? Like,
Yeah, but it's a conversation. You have that perusal throughout the week of the course, so like in between class sessions. But then once we meet, we then go further. This is where I connect with them and say, okay, these are the things that we really need to focus on, and kind of take what they're saying and go a little bit deeper. But be able to have that conversation in a classroom is much more easier than on an online. I mean, at least trying to coordinate it all, because you're trying to listen, but then you got these side conversations going on. So being able to kind of pull those transcripts and see, but they're getting there. So.
Yeah, I have to say, for me, it's the relationship. It's the ability to be able to connect in person. That's just the most challenging part of me. I've been familiar with Zoom way before this pandemic, so it was a very easy shift for me to go to Zoom as soon as we had to switch. I couldn't do the Blackboard thing; it was just too glitchy. But I just missed that, looking a student in the eye, ensuring that, having them come talk to me after class, ensuring that they really are getting it to a certain extent. And then it's also easier for them to tell me that their granddad died online than it is face to face.
Yeah, I would share all the things that both Mary and Peter had said. I think those are some hard areas for me. I want to add another difficult area for me, and this is really difficult to control. I don't think I can ever control this. Is two major things. It's student motivation, and that's become a little difficult. But then even more so is the student's learning environment. So like, when we come face to face, first off, there's a certain psychological switch that hits a student's mind that when they come to class, they're more motivated. They're there with other students. I think this is true of anybody, even in K through 12. It's a struggle being home alone, or home with your family or whatnot, trying to learn in this environment, especially when you're trying to do some heavy college courses. So, and then a lot of those students just lose that motivation because they don't see other students. They don't see other students working with them, and they don't quite get that accountability when we're face to face. And then the learning environment is huge. I've had trouble with my learning environment as an instructor. A lot of the students, I mean, they're we have a lot of younger students, especially that are there with their family. Everybody's working from home, that sort of thing. So it's like incredibly noisy. They can't find a nice space for the learning, and it's just difficult. So we're seeing a lot of students that are frankly either not signing up for courses because they just don't have learning environment, dropping off, or failing, with, again, things that are out of all of our control. So that's my struggle right now.
I have to piggyback on Steve on that one for sure. I know most students probably watch Zoom on their bed in their bedroom, not conducive for, which is not often conducive for a learning environment, the best learning environment for that matter, but it's what we're working with to a certain extent. So we just have to meet them where they are and adapt under the circumstances, knowing that their home environment may not be the best learning environment overall. So now how can you make it a little bit more richer on the Zoom call or on another call?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. One of the things I noticed that through all three of your presentations, there was the importance of simulations in lots of different ways. So thinking of like simulating processes and simulating settings and even simulating representations of content. And I wonder how much of how important simulations were in your courses before the pandemic, and how much of what you're doing with simulations now you'll carry forward beyond VCM and net classes.
I've used simulations for a while now. So even before, and then I think if it's increasing after, it's only because there's a lot more publishers out there that are jumping into that segment.
You know, I think I got the simulation idea a little bit from Mary, I think. So it's like in an entrepreneurship class where I'm teaching students what it takes to start a business or what type of mindset you need to have to start a business. They'll never get it or understand it unless they are practicing or doing it or talking with someone else who's in the thick of it, right? So before the pandemic, part of the class was to send students out to different presentations where entrepreneurs were actually talking about the pain that they were right in the middle of right now, immediately. And this experience blew them away. Now I'm sending them to virtual meetings to do so as well. And this, they're getting points for this to report back on how it went, what they learned, what the tie-in was to what we're talking about. That type of experiential learning, somewhat simulation, but more experiential, is invaluable and still can be accomplished in a predominantly online environment.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say too. I think simulations for us actually decreased due to the online environment. And it's just because, you know, we've always been an area that we're trying to simulate and build these experiential learning sorts of platforms to replicate what software and game industry does. So like, you know, even when you come to our campus and go to like SEC 101, you know, you end up seeing this classroom that very much replicates in a lot of ways like a game development studio, and the students don't have that at home. And so it's become really difficult to replicate that online. However, when I'm talking to other studios now that are working online, we're kind of doing it too. I mean, you know, if we need to, you know, have a powwow, like that sort of thing, we'll do it. We'll just open up Zoom, and then, you know, we'll have that simulates that that sort of like current remote game development environment or software development environment, to put it more general. So, you know, where it's I guess it's kind of a struggle for me still in the online environment, but at the same time, I think it's hard for me to answer. I think we're just always doing it, and then I think we adapted to the way that industry is doing it now anyway. So, yeah.
The one thing that I noticed is that we had to kind of create more of a connection with students, especially those that were face-to-face. And I think Microsoft Teams really helped, where they can, and it's all set up where the students can log in with their COD password and all that, and be able to pull up students that are in there, that are assigned to their group, so that they have that feel as if they were in the classroom in terms of the support to help each other out. So that was something that I felt like, wow, there's this huge gap that I didn't notice with online. And then it was brought to my attention when these face-to-face students were all like, what do we do now? We don't have each other to help. And I'm like, well, these online students have been doing it. But then I realized maybe I should have been there more to support them, and in terms of connecting them with other students.
Another thing that's come up in a lot of these panels is talking about discussion boards and that sort of, you know, love them or hate them or abandon them completely approach. And I think what's really interesting from this panel is that you're using communication tools that are used in your industries, right? Microsoft Teams is very much like a business platform that works really well. And Discord is a platform that's been used, you know, in the gaming industry for ages. And it's really interesting to me to see like how successful you've been, you know, just being like, all right, Blackboard discussion board, see you later. We're gonna use these other tools. And I think that's something that we could all kind of think about is how different industries communicate in situations like this, or have been communicating at a distance for a long time. So I think that's really cool. Other folks? Questions or comments?
Yeah, Jen, almost universally you hear about video. And while I've added video to my courses, the challenge that I find is the amount of time that I take, and it's because, and I know it's because I'm anal, but the amount of time I take to edit my videos so that they sound professional. For a half hour worth of actual video time, I probably spend, besides recording it, in terms of going back and editing it, I probably spend about 3 to 4 hours going back to edit it, to take out the ums and the long pauses. And, oh, I forgot, I actually said a particular date from last term. So now I've got to go in, find that spot in the video, record the new, you know what I mean? And I struggle with, because I know I could just record something and put it out there. But I feel if I'm going to put it out there to my students, I mean, we're in a professional environment. You can kind of look at yourself as part of your job is to be a professional speaker. And for me to put something out there that doesn't reflect that back on me, I have a problem with. And again, maybe that's just my personality, but I just struggle with the amount of time to, you know, to put in, put together a good video. And by the way, Steve, OBS, you're right, absolutely great. Great piece of software.
Mike, I would encourage you to cut yourself a little bit of slack. I was very similar when we first did the switch and I was recording a lot of my lectures and sort of transitioning them from what I would do in the classroom to, I was just spending all kinds of time. But I also think that there's something to be said for like doing some videos which are a little more like rough around the edges and a little more just sort of like free flowing and natural, because it does sort of like show that we are human, we're not perfectionists, and it does, I think it allows the students to just kind of relate. So I'm in the habit of really trying to make my videos as short as possible. I can tend to be really long-winded, as you're probably even realizing right now, but I try and like make them as tidy as possible. And if I, you know, slip up a little bit, I think that's okay, because it just, I don't know, I feel like it might make me a little bit more endearing to my students and make them more comfortable coming to see me later on. So, but that's just my own 2 cents. But I feel you, like I had that pressure to constantly like make the videos so perfect. But, and I still do that with some of my longer lectures that I can recycle, but I just try and get in the habit of getting stuff out there quickly and in a natural sort of sense so that students can get the message. So.
Yeah, I would agree with Tim too. I at first when I was starting this, it did take me a really long time to make my videos. And actually it kind of still does, because I have to do a lot of prep work and kind of like, you know, make sure that everything's kind of in line as I'm speaking. And I feel like I have to be more organized in an online environment than in a face-to-face environment for whatever reason that is, even though we need to organize our lectures face-to-face too. But it does take a lot longer. And my ums and ahs and that sort of thing, they were a lot worse beginning of the pandemic, and they're a lot better now. In fact, this whole online environment has actually made me a better speaker, because I would go back and rewatch my videos and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful, right? And I would go back and edit them, and again, it would take me forever. It still takes me a long time. It still takes me longer to do and prep an online course than it would a face-to-face course. So, you know, I feel you there for the most part, but now I do a lot of what Tim says. I kind of free flow it a bit more. And I do make the mistakes. So when we do software development and that sort of thing, I purposefully try to not do my software development lectures perfect. I try to like say like, hey, oops, I made a mistake. Let's troubleshoot, which is actually similar to what I did face-to-face anyway. And that kind of might take a little bit more pressure off you a little bit. You know, but I don't know, that's kind of my 2 cents. But again, I feel it does take an incredibly long time even doing that. So,
But don't you feel like, and again, maybe it's a personality flaw of mine, but if I go to a seminar, if I go to a workshop, and the person that's presenting isn't spot on, that just turns me off. It makes me feel like they're not considering me in the audience to be worth the effort to put their best forward, you know? And so that I hear what you're saying, but it's one of those things, I think, with me, like, even though I can agree with you, I don't know that I can do that. I don't know.
It is
I don't
funny
have a
that
good answer.
it's funny that we hold ourselves to different standards when we're recorded or watching recordings than when we're live in many ways. You know, I think seeing a recorded seminar versus sitting face to face in one, or even on Zoom in one, I'm willing to cut folks a little bit more slack if it's live than if it was live but recorded after the fact. I don't know, maybe something about the platform. It's interesting.
yeah, I think Mike, you might be being a little too hard on yourself, but I also feel the same way, because when I do my own recordings as well, I do try to make it a lot more professional than my live. And part of the reason for that is I know that students can keep rewatching that over and over again. So I get a little more subconscious about that. I also think that other people not in our class might be watching it, like a parent or something, right? And that's another thing too that I like get started to worry about, like, ooh, what if a parent watches this? Even though I'm not doing anything inappropriate, you still have that in the back of your mind, right? And you're trying to put an even better foot forward for that reason. But it's just something that I think has made us better. But again, I understand the concern. So
We have about 5 minutes left in the hour. I know a couple folks need to head out for 1 o'clock teaching and meetings, but we can keep things going if there's more conversations, more questions, more comments, or more things to share.
I think this means that the panelists, despite their fears for like battling over whose was better, I think it shows that they were all so very thorough that there are no questions remaining. So let me just say this. I want to say thank you to Mary, Peter, and Steve for stepping up and doing this and sharing your tips, your tactics, your experiences with us. This was yet another really incredible session. And I also want to throw some kudos to Jen Kelly's way, who has made, like, she has been a lifesaver. These panels wouldn't exist without her hard work and input on these. So I want to thank all 4 of you, as well as those of you that have come here and attended today. We have our final panel of this whole series featuring the STEM division tomorrow at noon. I see Tom Carter in the audience. He is one of our panelists. So I encourage all of you to show up if you found this useful. It's sometimes useful to take a look at what another division does and hear from them. So I look forward to hopefully seeing a bunch of you tomorrow. Thank you for coming. And Jen and I will certainly get the video posted to the FPD website, and you guys can share this broadly with all of your colleagues who couldn't come today. So thank you all. Happy Wednesday. We'll see you very, very soon, I hope. So.
Thank you.